The Football Show on Off the Ball.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now, you're welcome along to the Football Show. So, tomorrow evening, by the way, at 9 o'clock, Damien Delaney will be on. Any thoughts for Damien? Get them in, 53106. You'll get us at Off the Ball on Twitter as well. Brentford against Manchester United is in doubt. Still going ahead as things stand. The shadow of COVID is starting to loom large. 42 positive tests this week amongst Premier League teams, which is the highest number actually since COVID arrived into our general consciousness, so that's not great. Norwich City against Aston Villa and Man City against Leeds United all on the way tomorrow. No live football this evening. Very happy to say though, Pat Nevin is with us this evening. Well, Pat Nevin, how you doing?
I'm surprisingly well since I had my booster jab today from my third one. So they tell you it hurts your arm or something, but so far it's actually given me a boost. My booster. So go for it, everyone.
Well, you guys are all going all out. I saw Boris last night. I mean, not that he would be using a broadcast of that nature to distract from his own woes, but he was trying to look, I would think, very prime ministerial.
Sorry. Oh, your patter's great. It's never looked prime ministerial in his life. And yeah, he did try. He made a half an effort. He almost tried to comb his hair. It's kind of, if it wasn't so weird, it would be funny. But on the positive side, on that one, certainly in that area, he's saying the right things, and everyone's kind of going for it. There's big queues, etc. But the weird thing is, I got called. I was doing a book signing in Piccadilly Circus a few days ago at the Waterstones down there, and before Christmas, and lots of people signing your book, and I'm thinking, it's not great for Omicron. You're behind a kind of one of those plastic prospectus things. Anyway, since then, I've got about 6 people who've said, by the way, I've got it. I'm thinking, great. So I'm testing constantly, but absolutely nothing yet. But it seems to be everywhere. In London, it's just gone ballistic. And to bring it back to the football, you're right. It's going to create absolute havoc over the next few weeks. There is no doubt about it. It's going to create havoc. And it's difficult to know what games are going to go ahead. I know the Spurs one's in doubt later this week, on Wednesday. But there's going to be loads more as well. So it is one of those ones where the Premier League within 2 or 3 weeks is going to look very different.
Yeah, no, there is that sense. Champions League draw today. Take 2 in the end. I mean, if UEFA ever give you the call, Pat, just think twice. Make sure they're on top of all the details. I mean, that was unbelievable drama. So Manchester United go from PSG to suddenly Atletico. I mean, I'm sure they were happy to avoid PSG, but it's not the greatest draw either. So they have Atletico. Chelsea got Lille in draw 1 and Lille in draw 2 for the conspiracy theorists out there. Manchester City got Sporting Lisbon. Liverpool have Inter. PSG Real Madrid catches the eye, obviously. Juve got Villarreal. Benfica Ajax and RB Salzburg play Bayern Munich. That is the Champions League draw for February 2022, and hopefully the Omicron seasonal burst that we're experiencing at the moment is behind us. So thoughts on that?
The weirdest thing, if you ever played for a club before, it doesn't matter what you say, people go, oh, you're biased towards them, right? Chelsea are the jammiest, luckiest gets with draws you ever get. Generally, you look at it, it's amazing the lucks they get with the draws. I mean, somebody showed me a stat the other day about their FA Cup draws. They generally always get non-league teams in the first draw. It's ridiculous. And this one, they wanted Leo, they got Leo. Then they didn't get Leo, then they got Leo again. So you're thinking, piece of cake for them. The one that stands out, obviously, is the PSG one. I mean, that will be really interesting. It's going to be an exciting game, a bit better from Real Madrid of late. But I think what everyone is looking around, particularly the English clubs, thinking, well, that's one of them 2 out. That's good news. And that's pretty exciting. Also, RB Leipzig playing against Bayern, that's really interesting, really, because they'd had a tough time, hadn't they? But then suddenly they have that really good game against City. So, that actually probably won't kill off Bayern. But if you could almost see a way where this Champions League just suddenly just opens right out, and it's a fabulously open field, particularly for the English teams who've got a great chance of going through. But it was, you know what it's like with these draws. Sometimes they just want to make it more and more complicated than it has to be. And come on, is there anybody out there who's not actually finding it quite funny, really? Just thinking.
It was great. It was just good to laugh at all concerned. So on Chelsea, I mean, look, there were a lot of penalties. I don't know if we want to go through all the penalties, do we? Life feels too short.
All of them.
All right, go on.
Can I very quickly say one thing?
Yes, you can.
I
will. I just preface it by saying I just find all the penalty talk and analysis so tiresome. I don't mind it at the time, but 24 hours on. But go on, no, hit me with an overarching point that we
The overarching point would be, let's remember where you're looking down from, right? And it is generally the VAR, right? So that's what it is. And we've had these conversations forever. And you know that I'm a fan. You need to get working where you are working. But the important thing is to make sure you get it working right. Where they've got to now, and it's bizarre that they've got there now, is that the VAR has now gone back to refereeing it. We know that might be a penalty, but it's not a definite penalty, so we're not going to give it back to the referee to look at. I mean, what bizarre world are we in now? You brought the thing in to get the things right. That's why you brought it in. You don't say, well, it's not an extreme and obvious enough penalty, so we're not going to let the referee it. We're going to referee it. And that's bizarre now. That they change the nuance of it all the time. They've now changed the nuance to such a degree that they're taking it off the referee. And I give you the analogy of, if you're then doing it that way, you're now refereeing it from a bunker somewhere out near Heathrow, right? How did we all feel with the I don't know if you watched it, Verstappen versus Hamilton? Verstappen didn't win it and Hamilton didn't lose it. The judges decided who won that. As soon as they made that decision to stop that, they let the 5 cars through, and Verstappen sat behind him. I felt the same. Well, I watched the last lap, but Verstappen's going to win it, because he's got new tyres, and they've just let him get new. It was just somebody in a rule box and somebody in another box who's making a decision there decided who won the championship. After all that long work through it, we don't want that in football. We want the guys on the ground to say, help me as much as you can, and then I'll decide. But it's so uncomfortable. And it may well be that Verstappen was the best driver. I don't know. But it's so uncomfortable to sit and watch that. And yes, it was a wee bit exciting in the end, but really, we knew he was going to win. And it's getting a bit like that with penalty kicks now. Some guy over in a room somewhere else is not even letting the referee go over to the monitor, which is there. To make his own decision. That's annoying.
No, I agree with you. That had been, I thought they had through various hurdles and criticisms, found a sweet spot whereby the referee was being buzzed in his ear, come over, have a look. From the fans' perspective, from our perspective on TV, it's very dramatic when the referee is over having a look at the TV. It's half the theatre. And referee was then able to ref the game and had authority over the game. I don't know, generally all the shifts in nuance of VAR have followed a certain controversy. I thought it was going along very well, so I don't know what's prompted this change.
And it's bizarre, and it's completely wrong. If you think about it now, and I've not done all the stats, but if you think about it now, when the referee is called over there, he changes his decision, doesn't he?
Generally.
That's just the way it is. That's what happens, right? So now you think 90% of the time or something like that, and I'm just saying it off the top of my head, but it's the vast majority of times because of the way they're talking about the ruling. And what you do is you get referees coming on now and go, well, the ruling is, and they tell you, well, it's wrong. It's not what it was supposed to be there for. And they get so messed up in that thinking. It's not there for you to clip onto this wee rule. It's you there to try and get it right as often as possible. And it's that I've seen quite a few already this season where they've thought, well, it's not that obvious, so we'll not ask the referee to look at it. And had the referee looked at it, he would have made his own decision. And it's a bizarre situation. And I think maybe the West Ham one was maybe the obvious one of that, where they're going to give a penalty for that, But, it's not that obvious a decision because nuances. No, the referee looks at it and goes, yeah, that'll be a penalty. And that's the upsetting thing of this week. And what we've got now all the big teams, benefited fabulously from it, getting all the penalties this week. And maybe there's an argument each of them in the course of the game probably deserved it. The game I was at, Liverpool, Liverpool deserved to be winners. But you're now beginning to think, let's not go down that road where at the end of the season, you'll go back and say, well, that decision, and that decision were the reasons why you win the league. Because the three at the top are so close. It might actually come down to that. And we don't want that.
So you were at Anfield. You've seen your fair share of Steven Gerrard teams in Scotland, and now as he gets his feet under the table at Aston Villa. What are the hallmarks of a Steven Gerrard team?
Right, before we get into that, right, any Liverpool fans, could you just kind of leave the room just now for a minute? Well, let's say something that's going to massively offend you. Right, caveats, Liverpool are great, Salah's fantastic, they were the better team, all that sort of stuff. Steven Gerrard, one of the best players and one of my favourite players and one of the best people that I've come across in the game. But after the game, he was saying, at Anfield, they got a penalty and we didn't, and we should have got one. And I'm going, come on, Stevie, irony, mate, come on. We've all been there before. We've all played at Anfield, been rugby tackled in the box in front of the Kop and not got a penalty. Come on, Stevie, you were there for 17 years. You must see the irony of this. And there was a glint of it. And I'm saying it in a light heart. I'm saying it as fun. But it was really, like, anyone who's ever played there or a fan of a team who's ever been there is going, oh, come on, Stephen, honestly. It happens at Anfield, trust me. But they were great, they were good. And to be honest, he organised the team quite well, but they were a good distance behind. The one thing about Stevie G, and I will say about him, he did a good job in Scotland, that's fine. I kind of like the cut of his jib as a manager. It looks good as well. He does make changes that work. Almost every game you watch him now, he makes adaptations that work. Now, the classic comeback from that is, well, why didn't he do that in the first place? But in reality, you need to see how a game's going and you make a change that works. When he made the change against Liverpool there, they were getting hammered. They weren't getting out of their own box. And they basically just put two up front and adapted it slightly. They nearly got it back. And they were really unlucky. They should have got a penalty and they had a right good few chances. So the big thing about him, he's taken it and he's definitely not going to be swamped by it. He looks comfortable in it. He knows the players. He's getting as much out of the players as the previous manager. And I like Dean Smith as a manager. But Steven Gerrard is very early days and it's the Premier League. But I would certainly bet on him being successful against him not being successful. I think he'll do every manager will take missteps. They all do. But his missteps, what they are very, very limited so far, considering the pressure of the job.
Chelsea 3 Leeds 2. That's 8 goals conceded in a week now for Chelsea. I saw Thomas Tuchel was paying tribute to Jorginho, who you think Jorginho just kind of trots around silkily through a game and doesn't feel pain, but apparently he's had terrible back problems over the last while because he's played so much football and he's going through the pain barrier in the absence of Kovacic and Kante, and Tuchel was saying, what a guy. That's not my question. My question is about Lukaku. So raise an eyebrow when I see he comes on in the 87th minute. So what's the value of this? This is not trying to get fitness into a man. This is, not necessarily giving him time to score goals either. He was out for 5 games with an injury. He's been back since November the 28th, the Manchester United game, and is yet to start a game. What's the story here, please?
Doesn't look mobile. Bits of games. He played a whole half a game at one point, and I was at the game and he just didn't look mobile.
Okay.
Didn't look as if he could get about the place.
As in still not fully fit, or like out of shape?
You always think it's physique. You always think it's physique with him. He was never the biggest runner about, and from years, we've been talking to each other for years.
Yeah.
My feelings of Lukaku is, look, he's never going to be a great worker. He never did so it's not in there.
That was your big criticism, I remember, of him at Everton.
Yeah, and it upset me a lot because I'm thinking you've got all the skill and talent in the world, mate, but don't just work when the ball's near you. You need to do the other stuff so you drag people apart, and he's just not that player. So when you get an injury like that and you are kind of big built anyway, coming back from it takes you twice as long as anybody else because they've got that inbuilt stuff there that's still in there. There's still petrol in the tank, as it were. I'm going to sound like a petrol head after a minute, but it's still there. But if you've never stuck that in there, you've been running kind of near empty anyway, so it's gone. it takes that much longer to get back in. And when you look at it, sometimes it's in comparison with others, and you see the energies of Havertz, and you see the energies of Timo Werner, or Mount, or I could go on and on and on, and it actually makes it look a bit worse. So he may be still carrying a wee bit of the injury. He's certainly got nowhere near max speed. I've known many players I've played with in my life, and watched many who, if they don't play every week, it's a nightmare, because you almost need to give them a pre-season again to get them back there again. You don't get a pre-season during the season. So Tuchel would play him if he's right. There's no negativity of Tuchel towards him, or indeed anyone.
Okay.
His thing is, you got to make sure that when you're out, you do every single bit of work to make sure you come back and you can spring as close to normal. And he's not there yet. He's not there yet. And you can tell a bit. This is not me as well speaking. You can talk with Chelsea fans. They've got a £95 million striker, and I can't hear anybody saying, "Get Romelu on. We need him to start." I can't see it. It's not happening, because they all know, get him on when he's right. Fair enough. And the sad thing is, I'll give him this one, which is a real shame for him. He's been brought on a couple of times, and usually it's been when they've not had their crosses on, like Reece James, who played centrally, and so he's not, the crosses, that stuff that he lives off of. He's not been there, and then when he's not on the pitch, suddenly the crosses are all firing in. So it's a really, really tricky one. Chelsea need him. They really could do with him fairly soon, because like everyone else, they're not exactly running out of players, but everyone's getting stretched just now, and they're quite close to it. Fortunately, up front's not the problem. Actually, the back's not the problem. It's that central area.
Yeah. No, they definitely look a touch lightweight by comparison with where they were. Our football coverage, as we talk here to Pat Nevin, is brought to you by Sky. Don't miss Man City Leeds tomorrow, live only on BT Sport. Hey, we're talking energy. Can we touch on man of the moment here? I think everybody is enjoying watching Conor Gallagher. It hurts me to say Gallagher, but I'll call him by his correct name. Conor Gallagher of Crystal Palace, of course, on loan from Chelsea. 21 years of age. I think he's become a cult hero at Palace very quickly. He scored his 5th and 6th goals of the season yesterday. 3 assists thrown in. So that's 9 goal contributions this season thus far. But really, what he's about, as much as anything, is energy. So he ran 11.2k against Everton. 20 sprints thrown in, 347 intensive runs, which puts him top of the pile for the weekend. And he scored those 2 great goals. And even the goal in the 93rd minute, he was right beside Coleman when Coleman takes the quick free. And just, he's such an eager beaver. He's sprinting back, and somehow ball pops to him and he whips it in. It just shows, like, there's a lot of very important subtle nuances to the game. But, man, if you just run around a lot and have energy, a lot of good things happen for you. He's really tidy player. Is he going to go back to Chelsea, do we think?
I can't imagine they wouldn't bring him back because of what he's delivering just now. The only downside is the similarities to Mason Mount, and Mount's back on a really good sort of stream of games just now. It's the difficulty they've had with a few players, but they let players out and they let them develop a wee bit, then drag them back in, and when it works, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Worked with Reece James fantastically well. I suspect they feel as if they shouldn't have let Billy Gilmour out because of where they are in the central midfield just now, but they never knew they would get 3 injuries in that area now. But they're looking at Gallagher, and the problem with Gallagher is they're actually all right there. They're okay in that position. I went to see, I was at the Palace Man United game, and to be honest, it was rubbish.
Oh, was he? Was he?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was so disappointed. And I was thinking, I really want to like every bit of thing he does, because every time I've seen him before that, and it jumped to me. I've watched him now play 2 very poor games. And they weren't just average, they were quite poor.
Right.
And both times for the same reason. They put him as a sitting midfielder.
Oh, okay.
Because he's got energy and they want him to close down right. They did that against Man United, and Chelsea done at the start of the season. They played against Bournemouth, and honestly, fish out of water. You stick him a little bit further forward, and he's absolutely fantastic. So I actually don't blame him in any way whatsoever for those 2 poor games. He was just put in the wrong place. And by the way, he tried to work his way out of it, but it's just not that position. That's not who he is. Yeah. When he's put in those further up areas, honestly, I agree with you completely. There's a few players around like that, and isn't it great to see, the McGinns of this world and Gallagher's. I would put Mount in there as well. There's players that you think, yeah, there was a wee bit Rashford for the first half against Palace the other week there. Energy, Rashford couldn't keep it up for the 90. But when you see them doing it like that, the question then comes about how long can you keep it going for? Because we do actually see some of them not exactly burning out, but
wow,
they break down.
That's such an interesting comment because, I mean, look, swashbuckling and the long blonde hair, it's just fun to watch and it's rock and roll. Let me add it, Premier League, I'll have you all day. Patrick Vieira's asked about him. So you would think this is a chance for Vieira to be nothing but effusive. And he had a very interesting line. He said, Conor will need to manage his strength and find out the best way to manage his energy. I thought, that's a downer. But Vieira's not saying this for nothing. It was a really interesting comment.
Yeah, I mean, I have watched players over the years where you expend too much energy in the wrong time. And it's fine because for that 90 minutes you feel great. By the way, you're doing it on Tuesday again. And you're doing it that Saturday again. And you're doing it next Tuesday again. And eventually, if you're not 100% fit, which most of the players, we never really were because we were injured in something, it will wear you down. And you can see it with a variety of players. So you have to keep the energy. They used to always say to you, try and keep it ticking at about 90%. If you can keep it ticking at about 90, you're fine. No one's wanting you to get up to 100 and push the envelope for every part of every single game because you know what happens. You're human beings. You'll blow.
This is almost the art of being a professional.
Yeah, and they know when to do it. Now, there then comes this very delicate position where you think, okay, I'll just save energy. And then you're spending more time saving energy and you're then not the player you were.
Yes.
So Vieira's absolutely nailed on, spot on, right? Keep that 90. And then when you push it for 10, 15 minutes to the 100 or whatever, that's great. You keep that 90 and you'll probably be able to keep on going for quite a long time. But it's so hard telling that to a young guy because when you're young, you're absolutely, you live forever. You can run forever.
Yeah.
I can never remember feeling tired before I was 25. Just run all day.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure it does. He looks like a guy who's 100% fit right now. Nothing's hurt him.
And at some point, that will not be the case. So I understand that management thing. And he's not saying slow down, take it easy, play like Jorginho at the back. He's not saying that. He's saying, look, you will not be able to go for that. You won't be 33 doing that.
Yeah.
Manage it to some degree, some level. It's not. It sounds like a downer, but honestly, it isn't. It's very, very intelligent.
Yeah. No. I figured it was a shrewd observation from the unexcited, seen it all before Patrick Vieira, you know. But it was an interesting one publicly. Another public comment from Mikel Arteta on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I think we all had a sense something was brewing here. Substituted at Old Trafford when they were chasing a goal, left on the bench for a couple of games since. They won at the weekend, which I think gives Arteta a bit of stature and leverage to make these things public. So he said Aubameyang out for disciplinary reasons and wouldn't reveal what those issues were. Now the reporting, these things always leak out. The reporting seems to be Aubameyang was given permission to travel abroad for whatever reason, and he was late coming home, and particularly in light of COVID, this caused all sorts of issues, and so Arteta took action, which I think is a very admirable thing to do, and it might be short-term pain, because I think in the short term you can kind of get away with letting the big boys do what they want a little bit, and as a manager that might be tempting, get them on the field, but then you might create a culture that you don't want the youngsters seeing. So this is one of the first times I looked at Arteta and thought, okay, that's a bit of steel there. I like this.
Love it. Absolutely behind him. And what was quite noticeable in the game the weekend, you see the young ones that were getting the game, the energy levels, the kind of, because okay, they'll look at Aubameyang and what he's done before and the goals he scored and all that sort of stuff. But they're professionals and they'll think, yeah, but I want his place. I want to show what he's not doing for us, I'll do for us. Because it doesn't matter who's in front of you. You want that. You want to take it. You want to grab it off them. And for them, they could have all thought, oh, that's our mate getting treated badly. And if it's your mate getting treated badly and he's not been misbehaving, you've got a problem. But if he's been not doing the right things and you all want to do the right things, you got a boost out of it.
Yeah.
The players will get a boost out of it. And it looked very much like that. And as that game developed all day, 3-0 could have been 5, 6, whatever. And there looked a lot of energy about that group. And I have to say I'm with you. And I think There'll be plenty of Arsenal fans. They just want to see that level of effort from everyone.
Yeah.
And I think just people have got very, very bored with the people that aren't doing the work now. Now, some have got a good reason for it. If you're too old to be able to do it, you need to manage it in a certain way. But from him, you're thinking, no, you want more.
He was your captain. He's your captain, yeah. Because Thomas Tuchel was talking last year. These are old quotes, and this must have been in advance of some game against Arsenal or something, because he was asked about Aubameyang, and obviously he managed him. So this gives a nice insight, I think, into the personality of Aubameyang, good and bad. Back in the days at Dortmund, said Tuchel, it was a pure pleasure to have him in the squad. Oba was a fantastic striker, fantastic finisher, but more than that, he was a fantastic worker off the pitch. He didn't miss one single training session in 2 years. Maybe he arrived 5 minutes late on the training ground. That can happen with him. But if he does this, he's in a hurry, he excuses, he feels sorry, has a smile on his face. And when we wanted to get him to a meeting at 11, we would tell him it was at 10:45, so there was a good chance he might be there with everyone else. It was a pleasure to work with him. We're still in touch. He's a bit of a crazy guy, but it's a nice crazy. We still talk. A very, very honest guy. So it doesn't sound like Aubameyang's sulking and not putting it in either, but there's just a line you have to draw, maybe.
And it depends. I'm not sure Tuchel would take that now.
Right.
Where he is just now. I'm really not sure they would do. But there are certain players. I mean, you go back to Cantona. Did you want to treat him exactly the same as everyone else? There comes a balance, and everybody knows there is a balance. That you have to decide. Am I going to take that with the possible negatives that it has for everyone else who's got a different set of rules with the ability? And there is a point where you say, yeah, I'll do it. If you're Diego Maradona, yeah, muck about, do whatever you like. So you come and win the game for us, it's fine. See, when you drop below that, you are dumped quicker than you can walk. You have no idea how quick everybody wants rid of you, and the managers want rid of them. And it's very, very noticeable. We all know the players we're talking about. You don't even mention them. They're very obvious. I mean, and they will be very, very quick to do it, and they're very rarely missed by the people who are leave behind, because you think, okay, you're doing it for us, we'll put up with it. We're doing it for us, put up with it. You're not doing it for us, get lost. And you're not having this. And it's like watching a government who don't behave well and tell you how to behave. It's all right if they're doing well, see when they're not doing well, not having it.
Yeah,
it's exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about any government in particular. There are other governments out there.
Sorry, take your pick. So that's going to be really fascinating to see how that goes, and what reaction he gets from Aubameyang, who's on a lot of money, and on the kind of money I don't think other clubs would necessarily pay him.
They've been there before with finance. They've had to let a big player go. Let's be honest about it.
The Ozil one jumps to mind, doesn't it?
Lots of money, and I think the club would accept it. You take a hit sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's up to him. If he wants to go and start doing everything the right way, he can. But some players just aren't capable of it. Some people. I mean, sorry, my wife's not here just now. She's asking people to be late or on time. You can't be on time, and giving it that 15 minutes wrong. Some people are just like that. They're naturally late, but when they're not worth it anymore. Fortunately, my wife's.
Fortunately for you, your internet genuinely did drop out a touch there. So actually, you'd be saved from recriminations. I think I knew what you were getting at, though. I've had to fight that lateness gene myself. Actually, it's inbuilt in me, but it's a war. But it is.
Not a good thing to be when you're on a broadcast.
No, listen,
time doesn't wait.
I was memorably late for a golf once, and a friend gave me such a dressing down for about 10-15 minutes that I thought I can never do this again, actually. So that's a whole other story. Did you watch Manchester United at the weekend?
No, I couldn't watch it. I just went to the highlights. It did sound rather dull. Really
so insipid. Oh my God. So
do you know the effort? I was at the Crystal Palace game, right? Well, for 45 minutes. We talked about this before, I think. Well, they were brilliant. They were absolutely fantastic. They were up there with the closing down, chasing, doing everything at high speed, and then flop.
Yeah.
It just died. And I remember I was doing the commentary thing. I think they'll last 90 minutes because of the new manager. But they're not going to be able to do that every week. No chance.
Well, the half hour of exuberance followed by the flop. The flop just continued. So they were just wrecked again. Now, look, there could be COVID in the camp for all I know. But, I mean, it did beg the question watching them. This could take a while, like 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. How quickly do you get fitness up? Because, they're playing every 2 days now.
Yeah, exactly. One of the good ways to get fit is actually playing games of football, but playing them at a good tempo. You know, not playing them and conserving everything. You need to play at a good tempo all the time. So you can get it back in a period of time. But anyone who thought Rangnick, and by the way, he didn't think it, would walk in and suddenly it would be Leeds United running. No chance. Absolutely no chance. It's not in there. And it didn't look as if it was in there. And certainly by the second half, that they were at home against Palace. They had a new manager. They were a goal up. Things were going their way. They still couldn't do it. And they really couldn't do it. It was very noticeable. So it'll take a wee while. But I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm sure by the end of the season he'll get a lift in those sort of areas. But day in, day out, that's going to take a while. And the players they've got coming back, the ones that we talk about, from the Pogbas, they will take a wee while to be able to get to those energy levels as well. So they found themselves in quite a difficult position.
Meanwhile, a last point, if you take the last 10 games, bottom of the league is Everton. And it's fairly miserable there after a bit of a reprieve on Monday against Arsenal. And Charlison being taken off and pouting, and Rafa shaking his head. Then Rafa said he was injured. That's why I took him off. But it just spoke of a certain tetchiness all around there. How are they finding their way out of this? And will Rafa survive, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, they can get rid of Rafa if they like. Don't think it'll get anybody better. So good luck. Just muck it up. So that's a toss of the coin, that one. That's just hitting hope with that one, because they're not going to get anybody, especially where they are just now, that's going to be of that league, of that ilk, I don't think. So, they can go for Rafa, but they have to accept that it's, they've got a manager that's pretty good, but they've got a squad there that's limited, and it needs added to, however they do that financially. But it's very difficult to see it. There was those moments, certainly that the game, and latterly in the game against Arsenal, there's always a bit of a lift, and you realise, actually it was late in the game you kicked off there. You got better. That tells you that, okay, there's one area where you've not got a problem. But confidence in it. I'm going to, over the next few weeks, I'm doing Everton on Thursday night, Everton-Chelsea on Thursday night.
Okay.
With a real close look at the tactical, technical side of it a wee bit closer when I'm actually there, and to see, because I'm not saying Rafa doesn't make mistakes, and I think I've kind of spotted what I think have been a bit uncomfortable mistakes from Rafa, not being positive enough at the start of games. It seems to be quite obvious. So I'll be interested to see what he does against Chelsea. If his team goes out with a positive attitude and gets beat 3-1, but have got that urgency right from the start of the game, I'll think, there's a way out of this for you. If they don't and they're insipid again, it really is quite worrying.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make a point of asking you about that game on Monday. Pat and Nevin, pleasure. Thanks very much.
See you soon.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this Christmas on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Everyone is talking about the Opinions Matter podcast with Adrian Kennedy and Jeremy Dixon. It's one of the biggest podcasts in Ireland. But don't take our word for it. Here's what the listeners have to say.
It's off the chart.